Welcome to another episode of Women in Family Business. We are WIFB, the global initiative for women to share their stories and expertise on matters related to the family enterprise. Haleema Al Owais was only 23 years old when the sudden death of her father faced her and her brother and other siblings with the sudden responsibility of taking over the family business. In this episode, Haleema, who is today the CEO of her family business, the Sultan bin Ali Al Owais Real Estate Company, talks about the challenges she faced while navigating the construction sector in her early 20s. She shares valuable lessons she learned through adversity and the pivotal steps she took after assuming her leadership position, including opening a family construction firm to mitigate the effects of gender discrimination in the industry. Haleema discusses the significance of family business stewardship, as well as the roles hard work and humility play in achieving long-term success. Enjoy this episode with Haleema. I always like to start, which for most of us, when we talk around the family business topic, is the origin story, right? Like we've referred to it previously as the spider bite or the bat cave, right? Like sort of the origin story of the superhero here that we have in front of us. We would love it if you wouldn't mind sharing with us a little bit more about what that moment was like for you.
Okay, this was 17 years ago. By then, I already started working in Sharjah Television, which became now Sharjah Media Corporation, for 2 years. I was handling the procurement department. My father passed away. My brother and I were attending a conference on his behalf in the UK. And we got the call 2 hours after we checked into the hotel and had to fly back immediately. So actually, us joining the family business was not just joining the family business. We had to take up his role within the family. So it wasn't just go into the office and let's take things as they are. We had to become the father, the CEO, the everything, the umbrella. And it was a big role for someone who's 23 and my brother was 24. And we actually didn't have a choice. So my brother was still doing his last year of university, and I had a 10-month-old daughter, and I had just started my career in Sharjah Television. So let's say overnight, I had to resign from a job I really liked. I really enjoyed my job. So then it took us about a year to actually digest what we had to do. We were in shock, and during that shock, we also know that there was this responsibility. We had to step in to do all of that. So the business had to go on. The kids have to go through with this. My mother needs to know that she has somebody as her backbone. So it was quite a traumatizing year, but I did learn a lot.
You explained that you and your brother agreed that he would take over the companies, you would take over the real estate part, but you had also never worked together as brother and sister. The two of you were the eldest of the siblings, basically. And so you were suddenly thrust into this huge role of responsibility, which you described. What happened to your relationship with your brother? Like, how did the two of you, figure out a way to work together successfully?
My brother and I are very, very, very close, to the point where we thought we were twins up until we were 8 and 9 years old. We're still very close. We're close enough to know each other's weaknesses, to know each other's strengths, to know when to support, to know when we fight, it's okay. So working with him was actually the best working relationship I had so far. There's a lot of respect, there's a lot of trust, and there's so much humbleness.
You entered real estate as a 23-year-old woman. And I think we can both admit that that must have been difficult.
I wouldn't recommend it to the weak-hearted.
Exactly. I was gonna say, let's just be honest about this, because you speak about it so smoothly and you're very humble about it. But I know that industry, especially back in the region, and that is not easy. So, when it comes to this, building one's credibility in that kind of a role. So you're so young, you're a woman, and you're thrust into it. Like, people may be accusing you of saying, like, well, she just got it handed to her on a platter, basically, even though under sad circumstances, etc. Did you consciously think about how to build your authority and credibility? Did you have a strategy over time, or were you just like, I'm going to put my head down and I'm just going to try to get the job done as best as I can? Like, so did you have a shift moment as well?
It evolved over the years. In the beginning, being young and hot-tempered. But in the beginning, there was a lot of opposition, especially, I mean, what you said about it was given to her on a platter. And also, I had that with me when I was younger. Oh, I'm privileged. I should dwarf myself. I should. But then I said, no, I'm not. And in the beginning, I wouldn't say I was arrogant, but I was too conscious of what they thought of me. I was too conscious. So, and then it became the other way around. I had to prove to myself. And if people around me come to it, extended family, come to it, the contractors I worked with, come, whoever it is, consultant, whoever it is, who had this idea of me, it's not my problem. But it took me a few years to get to that, because let me prove to them, let me show them, I'll do X, Y, Z to show them who's the boss here. So I had early 20s, I had some of those moments. But then later on, I said, okay, let me prove my credibility to myself. So knowing the right people, knowing the process, if somebody showed that, it's their problem. We were working with it was the third project I had, and the construction company that we worked with were very apparent that we do not want to meet with a woman. We need to meet with a man because men know better. By then I got over that hot head. I said, let me show them. And I sat down and said, there is no man here. I'm the man that you have to deal with. So take it or leave it. Get over it. I'm the person who we're going to deal with. So either, we're going to go into penalties because you're late, either you're going to meet with me and explain the problem. So we had external struggle. I'm very lucky it didn't come from within the family. I'm very lucky with that. So I had those moments, and then I said, I told myself, if I keep listening to what's coming on out there and I give it value, I wouldn't be able to move on. So let's ignore and hope that over the time they will find nirvana and try to accept that women can work in a family business, and it's okay to meet with the women, and it's okay to negotiate with women. It won't affect them. And I wanted to stop depending on my brother being there during the meeting, because it's also a pressure on him. He has other things to do. So eventually I managed to meet with the right people. Also, maybe the way I ran business made them see things differently. Maybe they evolved, maybe they progressed, and I said, okay, we can meet with a woman and we can get work done. Because maybe back then, I'm talking in 15, 16 years ago, maybe to them that the boys in the family won't meet them is a sign of disrespect, culturally maybe. But then over the years, that changed. And I changed. I stopped taking it personally.
Mm.
And then eventually, after meeting, I said, okay, since it's a man's world, how about we open our own construction company? And this way, I don't have to deal with that anymore.
You've eliminated the problem by doing it yourself. It sounds like a very good strategy
and also,
to me.
It's business growth, isn't it? Let's make it A to Z. So we have the construction company that builds our portfolio, and we have the company that runs the leasing of the portfolio, and we have the maintenance company that takes care of it. So this way, if anyone has a problem with working with a woman, let's eliminate that, and we just focus on the subcontractors.
It's a fast-moving country, region, and fast-moving industry, right? Like, so to keep up with that I find it like mind-boggling, right? Like, especially because you have to deal with so many layers of technology, especially then in construction, etc., real estate overall as well. And it's a very volatile industry, very responsive to global effects and global markets. How do you enable agile decision making in the company? Because of course, it's never just enough for you to be that person, but that culture needs to permeate every facet of the organization, right? Like, so that you can stay on top, you can respond to these market trends. So how do you, as a family, manage this? Like, that you enable a culture that can keep up with all of these changes that are happening at so many different levels?
I mean, you mentioned it's a fast-growing country, but also people's mind change also and develop at the same pace. So one thing I had to make sure that we're not stagnant, because we were stagnant for a few years in the beginning. There was a lot of stagnancy there. So what we did is, in the beginning, I had a struggle with forming a company and reverting from old school to proper admin, just proper admin. And to them, that was a big leap, because you have old school people there who've been working there for way before I was born. I had to explain to them, and with explaining to them how we had to do that because we had to catch up, it took a few years, but then when they saw how easier it was, how the processes were easier, if there's simplest thing, there's a filing system. Things are entered into a database. We have computers, so we don't have to bother you every time because I'm in Sharjah, they're in Dubai. We have an office in Ajman. Just to have a system will make things easier for you. And you don't have to know how to use a computer. You have a secretary who will print out everything and bring it to you. So that was the first shift, and that it was a struggle. So to keep up with innovation, we just kept up with what the market demands are. And eventually, after seeing how changing and developing made things better, they became even faster than I am with staying updated. And also, everyone's involved. It's not a hierarchy where they're waiting for everything to be top down. We're pretty much involved so that everyone gets to give in their intake and their feedback.
Tell me about like how you are talking to your daughters about the business. There's this awareness of stewardship and custodianship that you mentioned before, right? Like, so you're here to enable the next generation, etc. Are you telling them about the business? Are you talking to them? And so what's the response you're getting? Like, are they seeing, or do they understand what it is that you're doing by now? Like, are they getting interested?
My eldest trained with me 2 summers when she wanted extra allowance. She knows what I'm doing here. I took her on site visits with me. I told her one day you're going to be working here. Okay, maybe part time. You can have a career by all means, but you will be a board member, you will be a part of it one day. So I want her to realize the legend that we're being custodians to. They know all the stories about my grandfather, about my uncle, about my father, how they started everything. They even know that before the boom and oil, her grandparents' business was in the pearl industry. So
Perlighting.
they know their roots, and they even know, they've seen pictures of how they lived. They know the history, and they're very proud of the history. So they do know how things are run. The way I raise them also to be custodians. So from an early age, they know how to manage their money. From an early age, they know how to be proud of their roots. They're still pretty young. Noor is 17 and Mahra is 15. But we talk to them all the time about how work is done. I bring a lot of work home, and they see me because I have my office in the living room. They see the work I've done. They listen to the business calls I make. So they're pretty much very familiar about it. I don't know if one or both of them might join one day, but I'm hoping they are a part of it, and they're very aware of it, and they're very proud. But I want them to have a built-in stewardship in them when it refers to private business.
Is this like also again because the whole future of the region is so reliant on the private sector and particularly on family enterprises and these family enterprises doing what you're doing, which is to tell the next generation the truth about what it is like, that there's a responsibility, whether you work in it or not, that there's an ownership responsibility that comes with it eventually. Do you feel like, as family businesses, we are doing enough in that regard at the moment? When you look around you, what do you see? Are you concerned? Are you optimistic about family generations transmitting that spirit of innovation and drive that they've had for generations to the next generation?
I do have my worries early on, but now when I see the generations after us, there are some that are disappointing, and there are some that actually surprised me with how they are. Their mindset is pretty much very stable when it comes to being custodians. What I'm hoping for more is that there's more collaboration between the private and the public sector so they can have more insight. A little over a year ago, I became a board member in the Sharjah Chamber of Commerce and board member in Investbank. And that made me see from both sides how things are done. So if there was more collaboration, I'm hoping, and I can see that it's going to come up in the future. I think this will make sure that they can work in parallel together rather than separately. Because also, as a private sector, you will see the demand more clearly from the public sector. And based on those demands, the private sector will grow. So this is my only concern and a direction I would hope that it's put in strategy soon.